Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Thru Port Collective. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. This is Marshall. I'm here with my friends Cryss and Tim. Say what up, Cryss.
What's up? Hello, everybody.
What's
Hey, there
shaking,
I
man?
am. Yeah.
You got your turkey ready, got your stuffing, your yams. You eat yams?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. We're gonna have some people over tomorrow, so hoping, like I said before, hoping to have some downtime just to come in here and make some music. Or at some point during the day, we don't know what time they're coming over, but I'm hoping it's early so I can get done.
Nice. Tim, what's shaking, bro?
What's shaking in life and all of that and a lot more. Life is good. And yeah, happy Thanksgiving Eve to everyone.
Yes.
This is kind of one of my favorite holidays, honestly. I guess it is maybe my favorite other than how the best to me. But Thanksgiving is really awesome. Yeah, just have a non-traditional thing tomorrow, not doing big meal, some wheels. I think we 10 or 12 meals to deliver to some elderly and some needy people. So that's going to be cool. And then going to do, my brother comes into town and we're going to do our Thanksgiving on Sunday instead.
Oh, excellent. So sorry, guys. Tim's a little bit digitized. Tim?
Oh, okay. Still doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I think we caught most of that.
We caught some of it. I don't know, man.
I think it was something like I'm thankful for Marshall and I'm thankful for Chris and
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it was that. Yeah, I was going to you guys give you guys $10,000. I'm so thankful for you. I just
exactly.
Because I have all kinds of money and
yeah,
I just thought I would do that. Thanksgiving.
I would describe the sound of you talking as, if you guys remember on what was it, the Police Academy movies?
Oh yeah.
The black guy that could do the like overdub voice kind of. Yeah, yep. And then like if you ran him through a ring modulator.
Or your qubit thing.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't really know what to do to change it. Like it's.
I think we'll just roll with it. I mean, it seems to clear up at times, and then it just kind of goes out. But hopefully it'll hang tight for the show for you. But anyways,
how you doing, Marshall?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm here. I'm off for the next 4 days, which is glorious. I'm going to try and finish that track for that game, and then I think I want to try and see if we can get our intro tune finished up as well, so we get something going on that. That'll be fun. And yeah, that's about it. I did do a couple of synth swaps in my live rig. So I've taken the ARP 2600 out, and I've thrown in the Korg Radius and the Roland D0. Is it the D05? The D50 Boutique. So that'd be fun. Just because I need to have full patch compatibility and be able to switch patches, and I felt those would be better in the mix, so to speak, for that.
Yeah, patch switching on that would be a little faster than the 2600.
Yes, exactly, and a little easier to see in the dark. I don't know if you've seen a Korg Radius at night, but it is beautiful. Has some really nice LEDs on that.
Misname should have been the Korg Gradient.
The Korg Radiant, yes.
Yes.
Korg Sunlight.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's about it. I'll be hanging around here for the holiday, so I'll have plenty of time to play with my toys, which would be good. So, real quick, just want to give a couple shout outs in the chat. We got Synthetic, we got Wagyu, we got Paul Artola, we got Get Some Many Music. Did I get everyone that's in there so far? I think so. If you're in here and I didn't mention you, just flip me the bird. It's perfectly okay. Yeah, and then in the meantime, I guess we're going to start off today in just diving right into our main topic, and then we'll cover a couple other news topics towards the end of the show if you guys are interested in that. But last week we were kind of talking about mixing and mastering for social media, but we kind of got off on a tangent there, and so we wanted to kind of bring it back to that topic here today. We've kind of finished covering some of the more technical stuff that we were wanting to get across to everybody. And I guess we can kind of start off on this a little bit. So, guys, I guess we'll start with you, Tim. When you're doing your tracks or your live performances, your jams, when you're mixing, mastering for social media, is there any kind of rule of thumb that you follow? And if you could just give us some details on how you proceed with that in your setup.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've learned a lot just by trial and error, mostly. I don't necessarily what the particulars are about degradation of the signal quality or any of that, depending on what you upload to. YouTube is not the greatest, but not awful, and it does have obviously, some high definition capability. So yeah, I just sort of do, as a general rule of thumb, what I've noticed with downsampling and everything else is just that it's good to definitely add some high end. I do compensate on the high end. So in Pro Tools on my mix bus there, I definitely have some go-to plugins that are different than what I would do just for uploading to Apple Music is supposed to be lossless. I don't know that it is, but it's supposed to be. And
yeah, there are a couple of platforms that are lossless. I don't know if Apple Music is one.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. And by the way, cheers. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Scott Martini. Oh yeah, here. We'll do our group cheers. I got my Coke Zero. Does that count?
Oh, okay. Here we go. That counts. Absolutely.
All right.
Happy
cheers.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes.
God bless us one and all.
Pizza, can I have some more?
Pizza. Yes, there definitely. So, from a quality standpoint, right away, I definitely make some changes, and for mastering, kind of just gentle mastering touches, and that's where it's. I don't change my mix too much, although I find that subtlety seems to get lost a little bit, depending again on which platform we're talking about. Apple Music or just purely music platforms seem to do pretty well, most of them now, without having to compensate in that area. But sometimes I actually change the level of things in my mix because things get a little lost compared to listening just in your studio, say. So I will kind of push things a little bit that would normally be just sort of sitting more in the pocket, so to speak, just sort of back in there a little bit. Sometimes I'll push those a little forward because it seems to help to get the point across.
Yeah.
So definitely that, and definitely EQ, definitely pushing the high end and bumping the low end too. I'll definitely bump the low end way beyond what is probably, what I do for Apple or anything. If I'm on YouTube though, I bump low end and high end because it just seems to kind of disappear. And then compression wise, here's another element. I try to not overly compress though, because I think going in to that format, especially YouTube, it's already doing that for me to some extent.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why I think a lot of people, when they do demos, synth demos especially, they'll a lot of times you'll see links to SoundCloud because you can listen to a full high quality, on YouTube compressed version. But the thing is, most people are going to be listening on this type of thing, so I don't know how much it's going to matter ultimately, but.
Well, no, that matters too. So, your monitoring choices make a big difference. Obviously, you're right, Marshall, and so you're not. important to check your mixes out on smaller speakers or listen on your phone. Literally just check it out and see what's coming back at you. Obviously, you're not going to hear much low end, which is part of the reason I move my low end up probably 2.5, 3 dB sometimes, just to really make it more prominent in on the YouTube especially, right? So, but yeah, exactly. You can, I think you can get away with a little bit more extremism when you're thinking about listening back on a phone, and also effects. So if I could address that part too, like
Yeah.
effects go away when you're listening on the phone. They definitely don't translate. So same thing. I guess really ultimately what I do is just kind of try to make things more dramatic, because they get sort of funneled down into a less dramatic and detailed listening environment like your phone, or maybe just some computer speakers or something of that nature. So I just personally, that's been my learning curve, is to kind of just make things kind of overly dramatic, not like what I would think is like, that's the perfect mix kind of thing. Like I actually like push things a little too far, and then they sound right to me coming back through on a phone or just like some little cube speakers or whatnot. So that would be my take.
Have either of you guys used any products? I saw one after we had talked about doing the show that was called Audified Mix Checker Pro, and it was a plugin that gave you different presets like phone, car, small speakers, big speakers, club, whatever. I don't remember exactly what they were, but you get the idea. Do you guys use any product like that to easily or quickly check your mixes on different music player formats?
Well, usually what I'll tend to do is I will listen. I'll bounce my whatever version that I have that I'm wanting to monitor on other things, and I will actually listen to them on those things. So I'll listen to it on the phone. I'll listen to it on the hi-fi in the living room. I'll listen to it obviously here on the monitors. So I try and listen to as many different types of systems as possible. From a crappy phone, maybe a boombox or something, and for so I guess technically, so for me, no. What about you, Tim?
Uh, no, I would rather. That's interesting to me, and I think that's an actually really smart idea, to have some different sort of curves and whatnot, pre-EQ curves and whatnot, to and compression and whatnot, that would include, obviously. That's a pretty cool idea. But in the end, the way I see that is that I'm still listening on these two speakers that are equilateral triangle from my face, and like it's not going to be the same as like literally listening on my phone. So I think, yeah, Marshall, I haven't done that only because I would rather listen on YouTube on my phone and then see what the actual results are, rather than having an emulation or some sort of simulation of like what those different environments might be. And it's in my room, it's always the same. So I need to walk around, I need to be in the car. I mean, I think I get a better accurate version of that to then go back, and if I want to do some edits or just for learning's sake, honestly, just to go back and next time I do a mix, incorporate those changes.
I would think ultimately so. I think where maybe a product like that would help is that during the mixing stage, to be able to kind of test it and do some smaller changes to kind of put you in the ballpark of where you want to be, and then go. Because you gotta, bounce it out and put it on your phone, whatever, go hook up to your car or whatever. It takes a little bit of time to do that, and obviously you want to put the time in for a mix that you're really concerned about and that you want to get right. But I would think, like, before you got to that stage, see, I don't have this app, so I'm talking more theoretically, but it seems like it's between the time that you're mixing and you go and do your checkout in the car or whatever, that's where you check it and see, where it compensates for the EQ and stuff, and go, well, what's popping out to me, maybe make a few adjustments, and then go through all the hassle of of going and checking it on other sources.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed about that. At least to your point, it gets you in the ballpark maybe a little quicker,
Mm-hmm.
or it does point out some weakness or strength either way. If you have something just to quickly listen to in your environment. The other thing that I'd love to point out about a situation where while it does take more time to do something else like that, it also like to walk away and listen in a different environment.
Mm-hmm.
It also gives your ears a rest.
Good
So,
point. Good point.
so in terms of stepping away from your monitors for a second and getting some fresh air outside or something, or getting in your car for a second, or any of those changes, just walking away and listening on your phone, changing your whole like psychoacoustic environment for a second, which kind of hits the reset button. You can get so just samey burned out from listening to that static same, the same distance in the same room with the same feedback. And even if it's good, you just need to change up, or at least for me, I find that that's really helpful just to step away for a second. So
For
while
sure.
yes, yeah, it's not convenient, but like it does have like a benefit.
And you can get used to the way something sounds in your room. So it is very good to step out and listen in other environments for sure.
I think that's a cool, a great idea. I mean, it's just like having virtual ways to compensate for your room with whatever sort of acoustics are happening in there and wherever the humps are and where problems are. Like having that sort of software that you can use the room and see where the problems are, and software in concert with your monitors is fantastic. I'm not poo-pooing that by any means, but sometimes there's like it's this thing. For the same thing with that for me was kind of like realizing with Pro Tools that I could instantly go right back, whatever, any DAW, instantly go right back to the beginning and start mixing again. Instantly, and again, instantly and again, instantly. And so, like, one of the things that I noticed about that, since I kind of came from a tape world, is that there was no 20 seconds for the tape to rewind and for you to sort of decompress for a second and think about it. It's just instant. Like if you want it to be, it's instant, right? I mean, you could just put it on loop if you wanted. So anyway, the little ear breaks I think are important, and we cannot do those. And I think it's kind of cool to have those still. That's more of a general idea, but it certainly applies to social media or mixing for anything, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Cryss, what about you, man?
That's kind of one of those things that probably isn't talked about as much because it's not as exciting as what plug-in or what piece of hardware do you use, but like you probably need a little bit of break or to walk around or those kind of things. That's always good advice. Yeah. So lately I've only been uploading to YouTube, so I don't feel like I have to cover a wide gamut of platforms, which does make it nice because I think that would kind of drive me nuts if I were really trying to work on multiple things or bouncing out multiple versions. At least right now, I wouldn't want to do that. So, more of my life was spent with live music, bands, that kind of thing. So the mixing aspect of it, although like there's a lot of elements of live sound. Well, I was not, particularly a sound man ever. I was usually playing in the band. There's always a lot of help that you have to offer if you don't have the world class sound man helping you out. So there's problem solving to be done, and that I think that has helped. It has helped me a lot because I haven't had as many things to put up as you guys have. So I'm a little bit younger in this as far as mixing and mastering goes, but what I kind of worked on is like when I found out my first conception of it really was like, yeah, I know things were louder and softer when you listen to stuff back on your iTunes, like that old album isn't as loud as this new album, things like that. And so when I started posting to YouTube, my thought was particularly just loudness, not in terms of being competitive, but in terms of I don't want to be a pain in the butt, because I hate when I'm listening through a whole bunch of videos and all of a sudden one video is got barely any volume. You crank your volume, you forget about it, and you go to the next video, and that is now just blasting everything. So to me, it's like, well, there's kind of a standard. There's got to be some sort of standard that's happening here. So what is that standard? And at the time I started getting into that, there wasn't a terrible amount written about it like there is now. And so finding out about LUFS and things, and loudness and to find those kind of targets was a little bit difficult. So I was doing it kind of manually really for a long time. And so lately, like just putting stuff up on YouTube, like I'll go through my mixing process. I've had some monitors that I've had for, I think, about 2 years now. I've got some Kali N8s, and they're wonderful sounding. They're a big upgrade from what I was using before. And so, some of it's like learning a new system in here. And I'm using ARC, which is the IK Multimedia room correction, because I don't have much in the way of room correction, but I don't have to record a lot of acoustic instruments. So vocals and acoustic guitar are about the only thing that I'm miking up right now. If I'm playing the guitar solo through an amp and not using software, the amp's so loud, or I can manage the volumes to where the microphone is right on the grill cloth and or close, and it's not picking up room so much. So I feel like I get a little bit more control for not having gone and done a lot of the extra things that if I had to record something serious, a piano or something in here. So that makes it a little bit easier. But go through my mixing process, and then on my master bus, what I've been using, and I've been using Gullfoss, and that kind of is a corrective. It's finding out where things are a little bit deficient in certain frequency areas or are a little bit too strong. And the key to that is just using it really gently, because a lot of people overdo it and they feel like it's messing with their transients and stuff. Like, well, if that's happening, you're using it way too extreme. And so I use that very gently just to cover the things that maybe I'm not perceiving it in my room or my monitor setup, even with the correction and all this kind of stuff. I just help it to kind of smooth things out. But I'm using some I'll be using compression. I've been using a lot of the Plugin Alliance Shadow Hills, the red version. I think it's the more mastering one. I've been using that a lot. I've been using a lot of Pulsar Modular's Abyss compressor now, and that's newer. So I'm finding out how that's fitting in. I've been using it a lot in mixing, but not as much in mastering yet. But that's kind of my next step. But so I want to have Gullfoss, some EQ, compression, or and then one of my favorite things to use right now, just not only in terms of sound, but also what it does to the audio, would be like the IK Multimedia tapes. And so there's one of the tape machines. Well, there's several that I like to use, but one of them in particular that I use. So when you get things leveled right, it does that tape magic. It's a very, very, very subtle kind of a compression type of thing and saturation and what it does to the EQ curve. But it's very mellow. You don't want to overdo it again. And so just having a few of these things kind of stacking up, that's containing the dynamics and everything. And then one thing that's really helped is Sonable came out with the True Limiter. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but Sonable is a company that's been kind of doing what they call AI, plugins. And so some of them are okay, others are great. And one of them that is really great is the Limiter. And so they've just released their True Balance and True, I don't remember what the other one's called at the moment. I think I've got True Balance and anyways, here, let me put it up on the screen just for a second here. So true balance gives you metering. Maybe we can talk about this a little bit more later. But they had built some of that stuff into the true limiter. And so as I'm figuring out everything and like looking up the statistics of, what kind of goals are you supposed to hit for your loudness and all those kind of things, from doing it by hand and metering to using a product like True Limiter, which has some of that stuff built in, and to be able to go in and go, okay, I am mixing for YouTube, and I'm mixing whatever rock or electronic music, and it gives some parameters like here's the kind of range you want to be in, and then it listens to your music and it goes, well, you need a little more less dynamics, the volume could come up, to hit the goals for whatever YouTube or whatever platform. And I just use those as guidelines because that's not the type of thing that I really want to spend a ton of time like trying to figure out. And so I would rather work on the craft of songwriting and mixing than that kind of element of I gotta make sure it sounds good on YouTube. So that's been a very helpful thing, and I've gotten good results with that. I don't treat it like it's the absolute rule. It's a guideline, and then just as you were talking about, Tim, you want to check things, you want to go back and listen to it, but it's helped me get things a little more consistent, which I think is the goal of something like that, just to give you something that's going to bring everything to a certain quality. And it's a great sounding limiter, but then also with all the metering stuff, it helps me to kind of start training myself like this is where things really need to be. But that's kind of been, I guess, kind of the basics of what I've been doing, at least. On the side, you guys have been doing this, have done this a lot more than I have. So
very cool.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Marshall, please go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Am I cutting out a lot? Can you even tell? Am I here on the show?
You are cutting out, but it's intermittent. So
yeah, okay, all right. Just gonna say one of the things that I do when I'm printing out for because I will do YouTube as a different mix from say what I would do to put up for Spotify or Apple Music or anything else that's streaming is I actually have two different mix buses.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm printing them both out at the same time. So I'm now compensated YouTube mix. At the same time, I'm printing out the non-compensated.
Yeah.
Which is just helpful to A/B the two and know,
right.
Where I am compared, right? Compared to like, here's what the mix probably sound like.
So you're able to do both at once when you do a bounce in Pro Tools? So
right.
you'll get two files when you
correct. That's
bounce
correct.
the session? That's cool. So is that something they added in 12, or when did they add that?
No, you just have to set it up through auxes and whatnot, so that you're sending two places at once, and you have two different with two different mix bus settings on there. Two different masters, basically. Yeah, it's a little bit of a pain, but I mean, it totally does.
Well, so my question though is, when you bounce the session, you have to mute one of those buses, right? Or how do you get the two different files? Do you have to bounce?
Yeah. I'm not listening to one. That is correct. Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or else
so you got two master buses, and then you'll mute one, bounce, unmute the other one, mute that one, and then bounce again.
Yes, and it's all free, so it's not going to matter if I mute it or not.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just in terms of what I'm listening to. Yeah. Well, I've got a buddy who really has this together, who he prints like 4 different mixes at once in Pro Tools, and one of them is like vocal, full mix. One of them is no vocal. One of them is vocal up, level up, vocal up, volume up, on the vocal. One of them will be in it. I think he can even print stems. So he's got this figured out so hardcore that it's really like, and it's all in one, motion.
Tim,
So
do you mind if we try something? Just because the audio is the most important part. Do you mind if we try turning your camera off and see if that frees up
Sure.
bandwidth for your audio?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. So I'll just leave and come back in, I guess.
But you
Let's
should
see.
be able to do it from settings.
I can do it down here. You're right. Okay, yeah, let's
You
just
want
see
to
what
try
happens.
disabling stereo as well, stereo audio, because I think we're getting stereo audio from you.
You are. So weird though. Never tried before. But yeah, let's see.
Yes, I think it'd be settings and then camera
Yeah.
and
Let's see. I have two options there, but I don't know that I might have to come back in. I mean, because I only have two.
Try the stop cam button.
Okay, let's
It should
try
be
that.
just to the left of settings.
Yep,
That'd be the easier way.
that's the way
There
to
we
do
go.
it. Instant.
Okay,
So
we'll
maybe that's better. I don't know. I look. Am I there?
yeah, you're there.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way I look with that perfectly circular head.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Who needs, any sort of like plastic surgery when you have a perfectly circular head like that? That's
I think
fantastic.
you've reached
Is it better?
enlightenment and the all
Yeah.
and all that.
Yes. Does it seem to be stabilizing the
It's still
or no?
cutting out pretty good.
That's so weird. Okay. Well, talk amongst yourselves. For a
Yeah,
minute, I'll go back out, come back in. Let's try it.
For sure.
Okay.
So, for me though, what I tend to do is I will mix to about -10 usually.
Mhm.
It was my understanding that was kind of the broadcast standard. I don't know if that's still the case, but and then what happened is as all these streaming platforms came along, they started normalizing tracks, and the main reason for that, from what I understand, isn't that they're trying to kill the loudness wars and all that, although that seems to be possibly end result of some of this. But the normalization process, I think, was implemented to where when people set up playlists, they don't have that huge dramatic shift in overall volume, which is what you were kind of talking about, Cryss. So I think the majority of the platforms seem to go with -14 LUFS. And there's a great article that I sent over to you, Cryss. If you want to pull that up, we can show it to the folks here. It's from Isotope, and they kind of talk about the streaming platform. So it isn't necessarily social media specific here, but it does cover the primary streaming platforms that you may want to get your music on, like Spotify and Apple Music and all those things. It's a great read. We can put a link in the chat for everyone if they want to go take a look at this. You don't need Isotope for this. It's just a very good overall article on the topic. Some really great information in here. So, like I said, the standard, there is no real standard. Some will mix to -14, some will mix to -17 or 16. It's kind of all over the place. Although the majority of places do seem to kind of settle on about that -14 level. So the question is, does that mean you should just mix to -14? And the answer to that, especially and according to the article as well, is not really, because you may want your song to sound a certain way. And when you implement a lot of compression and limiting, you may want that sound, right? It may be part of the sound that you're going for. And even though when you get it up on the platforms, it's going to get normalized and squished down a little bit, I don't know if that's necessarily the end of the world, right? So the best thing is to mix to what sounds best to you, utilizing different speaker sets, different environments, as we've kind of discussed, is a good way to kind of get an overall feel of what your song will sound like on different types of devices and in different environments. And I think if you do a good job mixing, use some reference tracks, and you'll probably be fine. Like, I don't think people need to overly stress on this, but it is good to know that if you mix to -3, your stuff's going to get squished way down, you know? So it's helpful to know that. So you can actually utilize some dynamic range now, which is nice. You don't have to worry about the loudness wars, because for a long time that was like a big deal, right? If you listen to a song and it had more perceived loudness, to an average listener, they may see that as a positive, right? They may think, wow, that sounds way louder and just better, you know, even though that may not be necessarily the case. Maybe distorted as crap if you normalize the tracks to the same loudness. So do your best mixing and monitor on as many speakers and environments as possible, and you should be fine. That's what I would say. And that's what I tend to do myself. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So, well, let's hit a couple of these terms. Just assuming that some people have not cracked this even at all, and that are wanting to get their music put out online, and you know, they've not watched all the videos, they've not read all the articles, that kind of stuff. Just in terms of basics, what are some of the things that we're talking about, like LUFS and reference tracks, you know, peak,
loudness, normalization.
negative,
So
yeah, all that.
Yeah, so LUFS, I had that pulled up as well, because I didn't exactly know what that meant either. I know what it means on the indicator, but
loudness unit full scale.
Loudness units relative to full scale, yes. So that's what these platforms utilize as their measurement for how loud the track is.
So, I don't know if I would describe it like you know, if you're watching a song, the volume is going up and down between, you know, everything. It's a waveform that's just moving up and down in volume. And so those little spikes would be the peaks. So you'd have a peak level that the track is at. The loudest part of that track is at a certain level, whatever it is, -10 or whatever decibels.
Right.
And then LUFS, or, you know, RMS, root mean square, is a way of tracking apparent loudness over a period of time.
Right.
And so I guess like LUFS has become kind of an industry standard over, I don't know if let's see if this article actually tells us some of those details. Well, without, you know, just straight out reading the article, but the idea is that, I mean, you can have a song that is got very loud peaks, but the overall perceived volume of the song is very low. So it might have like some really loud transient parts in it, but the base level of the song is fairly low. So when you listen to it, it's going to seem like the song is lower in volume versus a song that's maybe less dynamic. So the difference between the quiet and the loud parts are a little more narrow, and it may even be peaking a lot less than that first song. It can have a louder perceived volume.
Correct.
And
even
so,
though. Mm-hmm.
And so that would be where LUFS would come in, where you're measuring it over a period of time, and it's telling us about how loud the music is perceived. And so true peak and the spikes and the LUFS would both be important to putting our music out, and not and how these platforms deal with our music, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's kind of, like I said, it can get a little daunting. I know for me, since I release on a label, my distributor pushes out to everything, so I can't send them one version for YouTube, one version for Tidal, one version for Apple. It's one thing. So I have to mix and master to the best of my ability, and just try and make it sound as good on as many different devices as possible. I think that's the best way to kind of approach that.
So, how would you describe loudness normalization? What does that mean to you in reference to this?
So that means like if a service is going to normalize your track to a specific loudness, it's gonna push the overall loudness down to whatever or bring it up. In some cases, I think there are limits to how quiet a track can be as well. They will bring it up as well. But so the loudest point in the track is going to be brought up to whatever that standard is that they're implementing on the platform. It used to be like, I remember using like ripping CDs and stuff back in the old days, using like CDX and some of these other things. And you had the option to normalize the tracks. Yeah. But the problem is you would lose all the dynamic range because it would normalize everything to the same level, if that makes sense. So I always had a negative view of normalization, but the way they implement it on these platforms isn't that. They take the loudest amount, the loudest point, and they bring that up or down.
Hey, we got Tim back.
Tim, what's up, bro?
Well, I'm here. I don't know how I sound or how I look. I'm just...
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm slowly disassembling everything in my studio. Like what is interfering? I don't know. Well, I have had some weird moments about my Wi-Fi just dropping out recently, basically in about the past month, but it's never happened on the show before, so yeah. And I don't know why that is, so there's that problem. But anyway, if I sound okay now.
Yeah, there's always that kind of weird stuff. Like I had a gremlin for a while where, I don't have slow internet. It was like 300 and something megabits per second. And so like the incoming signal's fine. Most of the time, every time I checked it would look great. And then I'd get like a few seconds of really glitchy audio every once in a while. Like, well, what the heck, everything, my computer's not old. I don't have extra stuff on, and you just get this weird stuff with your internet service that I guess we just deal with it.
Yeah,
well, Marshall, you probably know how to solve this problem, don't you?
Yeah, I would run a bandwidth speed test on your network there and see what's going on.
There you go.
You go to fast.com right now and check and see what your bandwidth is. But that still may not be you may still have good speed, but maybe there's an issue with your ISP. You never know. I know on my phone, that's a problem with my phone out here. So when I lost primary internet, my phone, for whatever reason, is bandwidth. I think I'm getting throttled, or I've tried calling my provider to figure out what the hell's going on with it, because it's really irritating. Because you can't hardly do anything, like not even like hardly load a website. But that's only on the download. The upload's fine. Yeah, like 20 meg on the upload. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I'll do that. Say that again, Marshall. What's the where I can check my
fast.com. That's okay. That's like I think it's Netflix's bandwidth tester.
Cool.
And it's real easy.
So Wagyu brings up a point, and this is kind of how I understood normalization to work, is that it works off of if you're, whatever the peaks are of your track or the loudest part of your track, if it's below the amount of headroom that you have, the point at which stuff starts to distort or clip, it just raises everything all at once to bring your peak close to the maximum amount that you can have before clipping. So it wouldn't reduce dynamics. It would be just changing the entire volume of the track up. Now you could have problems if you had a really low signal and it was had to take it up quite a bit, because then you would be introducing some sort of digital errors. Which
I think that's how normalization is supposed to work, and I think that's how it works now. But I remember in the early 2000s playing with normalization, at least on some of the software stuff I had, and it would bring up the quieter parts, and so you would hear an audible shift in the levels, and it's really destroys the song.
So it's like some sort of compression that it was doing along with it,
I guess. Yeah, to normalize the quieter parts and bring them up to a similar level as the peaks as well. Yeah, that's not what you want. You don't want that. That's bad.
No, yeah, you definitely don't want that. And it would be the response time, like the gate time of that too.
Yeah, it was almost like you
And it,
said, like almost acting like a compressor. But
right,
it was a normalization feature. So I was always
right,
scared to death of that because I'm like, it's going to ruin the dynamics. But yeah,
right.
the platforms now won't do that. They won't destroy your track. They'll just increase or decrease the overall loudness.
Yeah. In fact, I saw there is and I'm forgetting the shortcut for it. I don't remember if it was a right-click menu or if there was a key command. But like with YouTube, there is where it'll show you, like you upload a video and check it out. It'll show you how much it's going to lower your track or adjust that volume. But
What is that again?
So yeah, when you have a video that you've uploaded to YouTube set at a certain volume level, there's either a right click or a key command. I used to do it a lot, and I've forgot. I haven't just once I started doing the Sonable stuff, I haven't really spent a whole lot of time thinking about that, so I don't remember what the key command is. But it'll bring up YouTube stats, and I'm sure somebody knows. But it'll bring up YouTube stats, a little window, and as your video's playing, it's showing you in real time how much it needs to adjust the volume of your video. So if you're going over what they feel is okay, they'll go, it's going to drop you -2 decibels or something.
So on fast, my incredibly fast internet says 110 megabytes per second. That is not normal, right?
Well, 110
That's
megabits would be fine.
Yeah, that'd be.
It's if you're under like a meg or something, that's bad. But sounds like you got plenty of bandwidth there.
Yeah, I mean it's normally been fine. However, today, I mean, just as an aside, our county just decided to start working on the water system. I mean, I don't know what they were doing, just the actual water delivery system, about 3 houses up, and so.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, randomly, no water. The house, it was all turned off, and no one ever said anything about it. And click on the more info and check your load speed. Sure, I'll do that. Anyway, so I just didn't know. Sometimes they can. That would be an either or. I would think like that. Actually, if they had hit something, I'd have 0 internet. So, assuming it's not that.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, saying this. Talking about what I was talking for, stats for nerds.
Right, right.
Yep.
Well, I wanted to be on the show. I enjoy our show. It's fun. Be interesting, but
kind of coming back to the more subjective part of it, Marshall. What does kind of the end of your process look like then, as far as what you're specifically doing? With your track, what are some of the tools that you're using at the final stages for, before you getting ready to upload something to YouTube or whatever?
Well, I use Ozone on my master bus. I might use a plugin called Event Horizon. It's like I can't remember what they call that, but I don't tend to use that anymore, but I have. But yeah, my signal chain just consists of Ozone and, I'll do a little bit of EQ, a little bit of dynamic compression in there, and that just kind of glues the track together for me, a little bit of limiting, a little bit of stereo imaging, and maybe some dynamic EQ if I need it. And then I will just listen to the crap out of it. And I may have to once I have a track like done in terms of composition, the final mix / master process, I may go through multiple bounces because I may listen to something and then realize, oh crap, like I've got way too much bass in this, or it sounds like crap on the phone. So I need to go back and tweak a couple things, and then I'll go back and listen again. It could take quite a while actually for me to be happy with the final product. And even still, a lot of times, like I feel like I release stuff and I'm like, I gotta stop at some point. I think it's okay, but
Right. When do you call it done?
Right. And it's not like I'm working with
It's
you know,
unfortunate
a sound treated room or anything, you know. Was that Chris?
I think one of the unfortunate consequences of modern music and all the technology and the learning and the sharing that goes along with it, which are all great things, is this kind of need for perfection, and it gets to go to an extreme level. And I think we kind of forget about the artistic side of it, and also, listening back to older albums. Even stuff as recent as the 80s or 90s, we kind of forget like how, things aren't perfect. They're not edited to death to perfection.
It's well, they are, but you got to remember, like, over the air on a radio station, like that's how we used to listen to stuff most of the time back in the day. Cassette, maybe if you had a CD player. I remember I didn't have a CD player till like the late 90s. So it was cassettes and radio for me for the longest time. But when they broadcast over FM or AM, they run those through compressors and I don't know if there's limiters involved or not. They run them through some kind of gear before it goes out to the world. The other thing I found out is that a lot of artists would take, if they were releasing a single, and they would pitch it up by 1 or 2% for the single. The album would be the normal release, but the single would be pitched up slightly to give it a little more pep. I thought that was really interesting because I never knew that. So there's other little tricks that people would do back in the day, you know. So it's always been leveraging the technology and the equipment that we have of the day to get the most, the best sounding thing you can get.
Yeah. And, and it's good to shoot for all that, but I think one of the things that I don't like to see happen is that the way that this is all portrayed to the home music producer. Now, I mean, if we have the luxury, like, I've worked in bands that have had stuff done, and, you send your, you go and you record, you send it out, somebody mixes it, somebody masters it, and you as a musician don't have to worry a whole lot about that.
Well, that would be the life, right?
Yeah, that would be the life. And that's where things are going to get done in a really good way.
Yes.
But, most people, are making music, even, to use Tim as an example, professional Nashville drummer, and he's putting out his own music. And, the way that we're writing and putting out music, we cannot afford, especially if you're working as a musician, to send it out to be mixed and to be mastered and all that kind of stuff for every single track that we do. And so there's this kind of, to me, it strikes me as like when I watch videos online and are talking about this stuff, there's this sort of pursuit of excellence, which is good. But then when it's put on people, like if you're not doing this exactly perfectly, it's not going to be good enough, and it's going to cause people not to be releasing music because they're worried about all this stuff. And the thing that I would say to that is like, yeah, I mean, there's all these guidelines. This article that we're looking at is showing all these facts and figures here. Here it is about reference levels and all this kind of stuff for these different platforms. And one of the things that I would say is like, if you don't know it all, don't worry about that yet. Put out some music and learn and start getting it out. And there's more important things than if you're mixing to -7 LUFS or -14.
That's not as big of a deal. The biggest factor for anyone is going to be, what do you have in your room to listen to? What's the frequency response of the speakers or monitors that you have in your environment? Because you can't hear what you can't hear. So, and one of the hardest things to mix is the low end. Most speakers, you're going to be able to hear the mids and highs pretty good, but the low end, you might have some trouble. So getting good frequency response out of your monitors is probably the most important thing, more so than understanding any of this other stuff. And just focusing on getting a good balanced mix, because then it doesn't matter if it's a little quiet. You can just turn the volume up. That's not as big a deal. And I've heard some great tracks released that are quiet, that were hits. They're not all the way pumped up.
Right.
And another thing, to be considering the genre of music that you're making, because if you're blasting really heavy, fast electronic music, it's going to be, or metal or whatever, you're going to have like a very dense sound, and it's going to be loud for a greater proportion of the song. If you put out an acoustic pop ballad at that same intensity, it's not going to sound right.
Right, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you gotta make sure it sounds good. If it sounds good, the overall loudness level isn't as important.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The loudness wars thing is, and that's been years in the making. And everybody wants their record to be louder than another one's because they're thinking, well, if my record gets on the radio, I don't want it to be softer. But Marshall, to your point, yeah, they brick wall limit the hell out of that stuff. So it's not going to be like somebody's record comes on and it's down here. I mean, it's all going to be pretty much in the ballpark, And so you like FM, certainly FM, well, an amplitude modulation radio, AM.
Well, there was a sound,
it's sort of like
radio. There is a sound to that, and it has to do with the equipment that they run the signal through before it gets broadcast.
Absolutely, and then what the broadcasting power is, and how far you are away from it, like what kind of receiver you have, and all of that, right?
Right. And I don't know how many people listen to traditional terrestrial radio any longer. Most people, I would imagine, probably listen to stuff on their phone, and just Bluetooth it up to your radio or in your car or whatever. Yeah. Or I listen to a lot of stuff on YouTube actually when I'm driving around. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
I was watching a video. So, I love these, talking to mix engineers and whatnot. And it's funny because like the kind of popular YouTube influencer type, mixing channels, a lot of the time they're trying to get you to do it a very particular way, or they're feeding the perception of what you're supposed to do. Like, just give me the rules so that I'll mix my song to exactly this and everything will be okay. Like, they want the shortcut for it. And these instructional videos are kind of playing into that. Like, you just got to match it to this number, and that's going to be it. And the funny thing is, like, if you're watching those type of people, like, go and actually watch some interviews with real mix engineers, guys that are well known. I have found it absolutely fascinating. And so one mix engineer that I really wanted to check out that I hadn't listened to, I've listened to, a range of people, different styles of music, Steve Albini or Rick Rubin or George Martin or whoever it is, like just kind of in different areas and camps. And one that I listened to recently was with Bob Clearmountain, and he was talking about Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. And they were kind of going through that title track of it with these other two guys who were kind of goofballs, but they themselves didn't strike me as like nerds about it, but were really enjoying it. But the funny thing is like how Bob Clearmountain responded to a lot of the questions, and they're asking him, I thought, legitimate questions like, how did you do this? Did you use this kind of thing for this? What did you do? And he's like, well, some of his responses were really enlightening, and I've heard it from a lot of other people too. It's like, well, first of all, I'd kick you out of the room because I don't want to be thinking about any of that technical stuff. If I got to mix it to where it sounds right and it feels good. And like, can you imagine, like that was like his biggest thing. It's like, it's got to feel good. It's got to sound right. And, you don't have to worry about all this other stuff. He's like, I don't want to deal with that. I want it to sound good. And so I'm going to mix till it sounds good. And yeah, there's things that he's doing to make sure that it sounds good. I mean, that guy has a ton of experience, but even back in
totally.
The mid 80s when that song came out, I mean, he was already a very well-known mix engineer. So that's one of the things that I really relish and that I need to hear. And I think a lot of people need to hear because they freak out. And it's causing a lot of people to not put out music online because they're worried they're going to get overly criticized about what they're doing. And, it's like, just
Really?
if Bob's listening to it and he's like, make it sound good. Just, I mean, that's not
Well,
that doesn't tell you how to do it, but it should relieve some of the weight of like some of these guys aren't. I'm not speaking about him personally right now, but some of these engineers and stuff are not very technical people, not half as technical as some of these YouTubers, but they do a better job. And that's kind of an important aspect to all this, is not to forget you're dealing with art.
sure. But you want people to listen to it, so you want it to sound good too. And that is part of this. And one of the things that I was really surprised about when I started my label, I released a track from somebody that was on the previous label I was on also. And he didn't know how to mix his own stuff or master it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt that was very surprising to me, because in the electronic music part of this industry, I feel like that's something that you could do, at least the mixing part.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to mix your own stuff, I think. It's not like you're having to mic up, kick drums and amps and all this other stuff. It's all, most of it's done with software anyway. Or if it is synths, they're coming in and you can get good quality audio from those. So I think if you do electronic music, you should mix your own stuff, or you should at least try and learn how to do that. Because you can, it's not that hard to learn. Just take some time.
And even in other genres, I mean, rock music, something that you had talked about before was like the bass frequencies being very difficult. That was what I always found. Like when I first started mixing, I mean, there wasn't YouTube videos, or at least I don't think YouTube was even out when I started doing it. But actually, many years before YouTube was out. But I didn't have anybody to turn to figure out like, how do I do this? And it was a bit difficult, but there's some trial and error to figure out these things. And having things like reference tracks to go to really help. And you don't have to worry about the numbers of it. I mean, I would stick on one of my tracks and I mixed, like my early mixes were, they were pretty bass heavy. And my bass guitar and tones had a lot of low end, because I was used, when I would sit and play bass guitar through a big amp, I mean, you feel that sound. And when you're mixing on little monitors and stuff, you're not always getting that whole vibe. And so you overcompensate.
And that's something that I was trying to get across. Your monitors are extremely important. You have to be able to hear, or you're not going to make the right choices. And that was something I struggled with for years, because I didn't have a decent set of monitors to mix with. I used to mix on little crappy like Creative Labs 3.1 little system for a computer, you know what I mean? And it sounded like crap, and I couldn't understand why all my stuff sounded so bad. And it's because you can't hear. You don't have the frequency response in those types of little speaker systems to hear what is happening, especially on the low end. So you need something that can get you all the way down to at least 30 hertz?
I would think so.
Yeah, 40 is good. 40, I think, anyway. I always dip out somewhere around 36 or something. Like,
yeah,
it's just kind of mud.
Yeah.
Even in EDM, you just it'll be there. And the systems that they're back through, to your point, Marshall.
But the thing
will be super over into the low end.
Yeah, but if you can't hear it, right, then you're going to overcompensate. And that's why, like Cryss was explaining how he was overcompensating for his bass, because he couldn't hear it on his little monitors, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to hear that bass. You're like, why can't I hear the bass? Turn it up. And then you go listen to it on another system that's got some like a couple subwoofers or whatever. You're like, holy crap, I got way too much bass in this. And that's why, because you can't hear it. You turned it up too much.
One of the nice things, though, these days is that monitors have gotten to be fairly inexpensive. I mean, you can buy quite a wide range, but even on, a couple $100 monitors, can be pretty decent and reproduce things probably better than the beginning engineer needs, until you willing to put the money out. But that's the thing is like when you're thinking about things like monitors, one of the personal decisions that you have to make is that you have to buy some of the stuff that is not fun to buy. Your audio interface and your monitors. I mean, those are not sexy things.
Oh my God, I could disagree more.
Yeah, but I'm talking from the perspective of a young, or I mean, someone who's new to mixing, because obviously we can go nuts with all that stuff. But I'm saying, like, when you first get into it, you're like, I want to buy a new synth or a new guitar or something. You're not wanting to buy, put $500 out for a set of monitors. Like, that's not a fun purchase because it doesn't yet have the value for you.
Do it.
But that's the thing. Is like it's going to pay off in the long run.
Yeah, do it. Buy nice monitors. You will not regret it.
Skip that Nix guitar. Skip that Nix synthesizer. Do what you need to do. That's one area you shouldn't skimp. And that's not maybe the most intuitive thing for the thing that the person that's just starting to record wants to hear. But that is where you'll get your money out of it.
Well, and it's not like monitors go bad. I mean, they can, I guess, but I've had the same monitor since 2004, so that's a pretty good investment. I still use them to this day, and I'll probably use them until they die, if they ever die. So,
well, and you know them, you know how to get your sound on them.
And not only that, I mean, and that's where reference tracks can really help as well. Because let's say you're not able to get like the greatest monitors ever, which these are not. These are M-Audio BX8As, and then I've got their 10-inch sub as well, the M-Audio sub or whatever it is. So they're not the most high-end things ever, but I will utilize reference tracks, and I do get a good frequency response, like enough range in here to where I can hear all the frequencies well enough. The problem with these is they're not flat at all, right? So, and that's where you were talking about like the IK Multimedia ARC. Mm-hmm. I have a copy of SonarWorks' reference software, but I found that I didn't like using it, and it's probably because I've just been using these for so many years, and I have a hard time hearing flatness now.
I can tell you, like for me, in this room and with my speakers and stuff, it has helped because it's helped get me that kind of. I mean, my monitors are great. It's in my room that it's correcting, so I'm not having to deal with monitor correction so much as like the stuff that's in here and what's reflecting and whatnot. And actually having
a factor too, but
I mean, moving my position, because it used to be that 15 years ago, my recording desk wasn't here; it was over on another wall and a little closer to the corner, and I did not realize how much that was affecting things. And I was like, I probably need to pull that out of the corner. And when I made that change, I was like, it was a huge difference. Like, okay, this is already a lot better than adding ARC to that to get all those other things that I haven't compensated for yet with room treatment. Like that made a big difference. And now it's like, I can hear my music as it should.
I mean, that's a whole other topic, right? Room acoustics, and that's a whole side. I mean, there's people paid lots of money to come in and correct rooms, to get them flat or whatever. Most people don't
build them right in the first.
Right,
that would be the best idea.
The interesting thing is most people don't like listening to stuff in a flat environment. You want a little bit of liveliness to the room, right?
And this is the thing, is that you need to know that your speakers aren't incredibly colored.
Right.
So that you're like just any mix you do, as soon as you take it somewhere else, is not even applicable.
Exactly.
But what you want, while you want flat or reasonably flat, is what I was kind of missing in the conversation that you guys were having, is that you want exciting mixer or speakers to mix on, because like there has to be inspiration, right? Like I don't want to mix on something flat and make everything flat. Like the idea of that is even like just drives me nuts. Like, you know what I mean? Like flat. What does that mean? I mean, it means flat. It means like everything that sounds like this. And so I think, from my perspective, it's exciting, weird, and unpredictable, and like, of course, I want my mixes to translate, but I don't want them like this. I don't want them flat. That is not. I would never even go for that, and I don't want my speakers to be so perfect that they're flat, because also that is the most boring and uninspiring environment. You'll never, if so no, seriously, so dig this. So if you're mixing on perfectly flat speakers, which don't exist, but anyway, if they did, hypothetically, you would sit there and mix everything just perfectly pocketed, and everything would be just da 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 da. But there would never be that one moment where you go, whoa, wow, what happened right there? Where something jumps out a little bit, but it's intentional, Or, everything would just be like the salt flats of, no. Like, I want those peaks. It'd be the same thing as leveled everything out with compression, right? We were talking about that earlier, how you want transients, right? From the same sort of ear set, let's say, you don't want everything just to be perfectly pocketed. Maybe sometimes something's just a little bit too loud, and it just goes, oh, damn, right?
Yeah.
And so
it can be creative.
Anyway, yeah. So mixing is. Go ahead.
Sorry, an example of that to go along with what you were saying. Giles Martin is remixing the Beatles albums, and that's the son of George Martin. And so the one that they just released is Revolver. And so on my YouTube or my Facebook page, I posted an interview with him, which was very fascinating, because here's a man that greatly respects the work of his father and the work of the Beatles, and is not wanting to reinvent the wheel when it comes to their mixes, but knows that through technology he can isolate some stuff and fix some stuff up and make it sound better. But some of those early mixes were really odd, and it's stuff very purposely was poking out. And I think it was maybe Taxman or something, that some of the guitar parts are just really loud in there, and or one of the songs off of Revolver anyway. And so he goes to Paul McCartney and is like, hey, I'm really concerned about this, or these were really loud, but I don't feel like it's they sit in there. And Paul told him, was like, dude, this is rock and roll, man. Just like push them out there. Do it. We'll do what you really want to do with it, and get them, where they should be, and don't worry about it. And I thought that was a very interesting thing, because it really fits with what you were talking about, Tim. Is like, yeah, sometimes you got to be careful that you don't overly nominalize and make everything so flat and even.
It's about that balance, though,
yeah.
Right? And it's also about what you want, and what you don't have to make it sound like anything else. You can make it sound as crazy as you want. There's no rule to that, really. So it's about the balance and getting the result that you want out of it at the same time.
Yeah, and that's why I think when for social media, sometimes you have to, when you're, and we're assuming now that we are the mixers, you have to push certain elements beyond what you think sounds normal for it to translate in a way that's impactful across social media. I'm just speaking of YouTube, especially, seems like everything gets like not in a good way. Like
exactly what Tim said.
Kiss your mother with that mouth?
Yeah. Sorry, Tim. We got like a couple words out of that.
Oh, sorry.
I cut the part where you said for social media you want to have some things pop out to be impactful.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, gents. I can't control what my internet's doing.
It's all good.
Yeah. Anyway, I had a couple points in there somewhere. Pretty sure I
this
did.
would be like a good time to pivot, maybe.
Yeah, I think we beat this horse to death. Let's talk about some news.
Yeah, and let me just say too, like So this episode and the last episode have probably been by far the least watched of any of our episodes, because it's not the fun stuff. It's not the exciting.
It's not like we're famous producers either.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be another thing. So. Listen to us. Go look it up on the internet.
But I think it was definitely a worthy topic to spend some time on exploring. I mean, this is not we're not giving a rule book of what to do. It's very exploratory, but it's great to hear everybody's perspective on it, and just appreciate the people that were hanging out with us while we did it and are watching it afterwards, because again, we know what sells, and if we had spent this entire live stream talking about new gear releases, we would get a lot more viewers, but that's not what we want to do.
Exactly correct. Exactly correct.
Speaking of, let's talk about some gear so we can get some views.
Yeah, so let's talk about some gear.
So, leading up to Black Friday, I mean, geez, it's like Black November. All of a sudden this week, there's been like a ton of stuff. Maybe like, let me just read the list. We won't talk about all this stuff, but just some of the stuff that like we had discussed. What do we want to boil it down to talk about? And there's the Mini Moog reissue, Sequential Trigon, the Cherry Audio GX80, Chord Collection 4, the new Moger Foger plugin.
What'd you call me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tim already called you that a moment ago, but
oh yeah, but we couldn't hear him.
Yeah. Piano Tech 8, Valhalla Supermassive with 2 new algorithms, also Valhalla Delay with new algorithms, Waldorf Strikefet, if that's how you say it, now as a plugin.
Yeah, the Strikefet, the plugin. Yeah.
Sound Paint, Tau Legato, ALM, Pro Pamela's work. There's more than that, but we just stopped listing stuff there because it's too much.
I mean, it's crazy. And when I think about this, and I think about things like the things that have come out in the last couple of years is amazing.
Yeah.
The amount of choice in the market covers everything. You've got poor man analog, you got rich man analog, you got middleman analog, you got all the analog you could ever want. There's still digital out there too. Like plugins are crazy. It's amazing. There's so much choice and I love it.
Yeah. It's nice. I never understood the argument of like, do we need another such and such thing? Like, hey, yeah, bring on the competition.
Yeah, I mean, hell yeah, bring as many as you can. That's the whole.
Some of these like
this. Yeah, I mean, because like back in the day, this is. I mean, it's not like it's cheap stuff now. You spend a lot of money on stuff now still too, but man, it just seemed like you had to be super wealthy to get into the electronic music stuff back in the 80s, right?
Yeah
2 years worth of gear, no kidding. So let's talk about that. So I don't know where Tim went. Hopefully he's going to be able to come back in here before the end of the show. I'd like to hear his thoughts on some of this stuff. But the Mini Moog Model D is being reissued again. Now this was a synth that was reissued in 2016, and I have one right there. I'm super excited to see this back. I wish that's like something that they should just not discontinue, in my opinion. They should just keep making these. It's their bread and butter, and I think they should just keep making them. But it was my understanding that they stopped making the first reissue run because they didn't have an unlimited supply of parts. So I don't know if that issue was solved and now we have this, or if that was all BS. And because these are made, from what I understand, the same as the 2016s, which are through-hole component. They're made just like the originals. I say just like, except for the fact there's a third LFO, you got MIDI, and you got at least with this one, there's a spring pitch wheel. Yeah. Mine doesn't have the spring; it's the original style.
Does yours have the MIDI on it? I know this one does, but
it's MIDI. Yeah, it's got MIDI, okay.
Which would be different from the originals, also.
Of course,
a very good addition.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I don't understand what the point would be to buy any of these if they didn't have MIDI. Yeah. So I'm glad they added that to these, and that's wasn't that something that Studio Electronics did? Was like make MIDI kits for the old Model Ds. Isn't that something they did?
There's been so many companies. There's been a number of companies that have done that. Kiwi and
Yeah.
others have done it retrofits for vintage.
And they do them for the other synths too. Yeah, but yeah. So this is a cool one to see back. It is extremely expensive though. I don't know why they bumped the price up so much, but maybe it's just gotten that much more expensive. I have no idea. Maybe they took a look at Reverb and eBay and saw secondhand reissues going for about 6K, 7K, and thought, well, we could get 5K for this. But when you sit there and you look at the OBX8, which is
the same price as this,
I know. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it is a mini Moog though, so I understand, but it feels not so great that it's that expensive because I got mine for $3,000. Can you believe it?
It seems like $3,500 should be the price, maybe that it is now, but. You know, I have said for a long time, like anytime we've brought up these things on, you know, whatever show we have been on, I kept thinking like, why don't they do a surface mount version of this for a lot less money? Not that it would be tremendously less expensive or anything, but look at how good, you know, the OBX8 is and all these other synthesizers, all the sequential stuff. They're all surface mount stuff, you know, better heat distribution, takes up less space, you know, all these advantages to it. And there's not a big difference in the sound.
And while I agree with you there, it's a Model D. Like it's got to be through home. It's got to be like the original. I feel like you would have far less people buy it that really want it if it's a little tiny PCB and all surface mount like the Bogues. Right. So
I don't know, but if you put it out for, you know, instead of $5,000, if you put out one of these for $2,500 surface mount, they would sell a ton of them. I mean,
they just did this like 5 years ago for that price. I don't understand why they cost so much now. I really don't. I'd love to hear Moog's explanation for that. Like, are the parts costing that much more? Is your labor expenses down at that much? Like, why is this $1,500 more than?
Yeah, I can't see that. I think.
There's been inflation. I get it, but not. I don't think there's been that much to justify. I mean, but it is Moog, so people will pay it, and you know, more power to them, right? We want them to stick around, and we want them to make money, and if that's what it takes to make money, whatever.
and to you know. Discern between the two issues, like, gosh dang, it seems very expensive, but also at the same time, you know, let's acknowledge that this is super killer and it's the classic synth in my book, and I'm very jealous of Brian who's getting one now. Brian's argument, I don't think, you know, you say, well, it would be $15,000 the original cost, but you got to consider that the competition isn't there. So you didn't have all the competition back in 1970.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, the ability to manufacture things today versus 1970 is day and night. And I used to work in the manufacturing industry. The machines that they have that can crank stuff out is amazing now. And, you know, not that they didn't have some of that in the 70s, but they were all tape driven pieces of junk. You know what I mean? Like, you can do way crazy stuff now.
Well, Marshall, the answers are in. So Wagyu says it's finishing costs. The darker one costs more. The stain of it, you know, it is cherry, so it is a darker wood, but it's still stained. And Paul says, well, have you priced pitch wheel springs lately?
Yeah, about $1,500.
And we got Tim in here to enter the fray. Mini Moog.
Tim, Mini Moog Model D, $5,000. What do you think?
Nope.
Can you hear us, Tim?
I can, and can you hear me? I guess was
yes. You sound crystal clear, man.
That's amazing. Okay, well, I wish I had something good to say. Yeah. Okay. Well, hi. The Model D.
Yes.
Well, I mean, geez, like this is probably historically, for sure, one of the most. I don't know what I've missed, so sorry if I'm repeating
a lot of ranting. That's okay. We want to hear your full opinion.
Yeah, I want to hear the Tim take.
The Tim take is that it is the I think iconic synthesizer for popular music, and I think when Bob Moog and Deutsch, right, or right, the guy he designed it with, help me here.
Yeah, Deutsch, I think. I know who you're talking about. They just had videos with that guy. Oh,
yeah.
Last year or something.
Yeah. And so they were talking about. I think when the components were being built, there wasn't a keyboard yet. And I've heard the story about how the keyboard came to be, and it had to do with going down to the hardware store, and getting. You know what I mean? And so I think it's this synth has seeped into the collective consciousness of everybody that loves synthesizers. I think it is the probably most iconic. Maybe the 2600 might be right up there.
I still think the Mini Moog. As much as I would want to say the 2600, but I think the Mini Moog is the iconic synthesizer.
I think the 2600 is cooler, but the Model D is definitely like one of the holy grails of synthesis, right?
Yeah.
It got synthesis, into the hands of musicians that didn't know how to, patch things around and try to make sense of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was
it's
already
hard to make a bad sounding sound on a Model D.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's almost anything you do with it's going to sound good. I mean,
yeah. Yes.
We have to mess it up there.
Yeah. So, and so for me, especially writing music on piano and then knowing about certain bands that used the Model D, that was just like, that was my dream. So, oh my God, like I just wanted one of those so badly. And for my 14th birthday, I know I've told the story before, but for anyone else that maybe hasn't heard it, my parents rented me one at my request for my 14th birthday, and I made a piece of music with a buddy who was also a drummer, R.I.P. But that was so much fun, and that synth taught me everything about it. So for me, it's part of my DNA about loving synthesizers. So that as a preface, right? And then I don't know about what I think about this. I kind of feel my gut response was, is anyone really hungry for this?
Yeah. I guarantee you there's many people that kick themselves in the ass for not getting the 2016 reissue are going to jump on one of these. Yeah. Because it's still cheaper than trying to buy a secondhand one. And
vintage one,
or a reissue
one,
or a reissue even.
Yeah.
In addition to those that got the original reissue, think about all the thousands and thousands of people like me that bought the Behringer Model D, because I mean the reissue prices at that time were still over $3,000. So like there's so many people that are in love with that sound. Plus, in addition to that, the thousands and thousands of people that have bought Mini Moog soft synths, all the different ones, Arturia, Monarch.
Yeah, that was my thing. Right? Yeah. That before I had this, I had the Arturia Mini V, I think is what it's called. And I thought that sounded like a Mini Moog, but it don't sound like a Mini Moog at all compared to the real thing. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so much nuance in the real thing that just isn't captured in the software, at least in that one from however long ago that was now.
You were talking about the Arturia one?
The Arturia one. That's the only one I've used. Yeah,
that's one of their oldest ones in the V collection. So it's due for a good update. Although one nice thing is like if anybody is in the market for something that's a little closer than the Arturia one, is Moog recently they've had their mini Moog uh, app. I don't remember. It's called Model D maybe.
Is it an app or plugin?
Yeah, it was on iOS for a long time, but if you're on Mac, you can get it as an AUV3 now. So I'm now using their Minimoog app in Logic as a soft synth. So
I'd be surprised to hear how accurate that is, especially their version of it. I'd really like to hear some. I bet you there's some stuff online, but
it's one of the I think it's one of the better ones, if not the best. The Softtube one I think could have surpassed it for tonality, but it just feels like the Minimoog that they modeled off was a little bit sick. So that was kind of a bummer because I think they could have really gotten it right. But I'll be looking forward to the next Arturia one. But the thing is, like, if you are able to go to that next level, I mean, I think the Moog app version is like 50% off right now. So it's, I mean, you're talking whatever, like $15 or something. It's been a long time since I bought it, so you can look it up. May not be accurate, but the thing is, like, for a couple $100, the Behringer Model D sounds fantastic. In fact, the one that I have, I'm familiar with. I've played it a bunch, and the last vintage Minimoog that I played, which was earlier this year, did not sound as good. Now, maybe it wasn't calibrated well. It hadn't been taken care of or something. I'm not saying that the Behringer is going to sound better than all Minimoogs. I'm not saying that at all. And certainly the playing experience of it is not the same, but they have done a very good job of it. And as Wagyu says, it's basically a SMT clone of the 2016.
It's a good, yeah, it is. And I have both, and I did some demos on both, some comparisons, and they can sound virtually identical if you have them side by side. But if you dial them up to the numbers using patch sheets, they're not going to sound the same. Most likely it has something to do with the potentiometers on the Boog being smaller or something. I don't know what the deal is there, but
the tolerances, because you wouldn't put a 2016 versus a 1974
so you
and expect them to line up the same either. You would need to dial it in by year. So
you need different patch sheets for the Boog, but it can sound virtually identical, at least in the testing I had done. That was kind of an annoyance, though, because people are going to get that. They're going to download patch sheets for Minimoog, and they're going to dial stuff in, and it's not going to sound like it's supposed to. And that's so they almost like need to redo, if they haven't already, some of those classic patches.
I don't know. That's the thing. It's like with a Minimoog, like, it's not really the type of synthesizer that you really have to use a lot of patch sheets for, really. It's like you just it's so simple, you just sit and dial it in.
But but if there is a sound that you want and someone's able to give you a patch sheet or something,
Yeah, and I watch a lot of stuff, like, one thing that drives me nuts on YouTube is, like, if it's a synthesizer or a guitar amp, both of those, particularly guitar amps, like, people will go, here's the vintage and here's the reissue. We've set all the knobs at noon, and they compare them, and, like, they're obviously different sounding. Like,
yeah, of course they're going to be.
Like, well, yeah, duh. Like, you might need to turn this one, 5 millimeters to the left, and this one 5 to the right. And
it's just something to be
really close.
It's just something to be mindful of, because I don't know that everyone's going to realize that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Is my audio still okay? Can I?
Yeah, you're sounding good.
Yeah.
Crystal clear, Tim.
Okay, cool. Because what I'm thinking about this is immediately. So there's a heartfelt connection to this unit, right? This instrument is like super iconic. So we can sit here and, like, talk about how the software emulations get close or whatever, or don't, or do they sound exactly the same, or do they not? But for me, I'm just like, I'm already flying over that, and I look at that beautiful instrument and I think, well, sure, for me, I'd love to have that. I would.
Yeah.
Like it's, and the tactile part of it and the beautiful construction of it, and it is an actual Moog. Now, does this matter in the end with music creation? I don't know that it matters in the end with music creation. And for $5,000, I mean, what? Like God, I had buyer's remorse with the OBX8 at $5,000, and that's a polysynth, right? Like I'm just thinking, here's a monosynth, but it is the monosynth. So we could talk about that.
I have to admit, I love the Mini Moog. I got one. But I was hesitant at $3,000. I had a $500 discount on that, and I was like,
yeah,
a lot,
Yeah.
$5,000. I would probably still do it, but I would hate myself for it and love myself for it at the same time.
When you guys were off of, or rather when I was off, when I couldn't hear you guys, were you talking about the few different updates they did to it, the changes they did to it? Did you? So what were those?
So that you
talked about?
Spring in the pitch wheel.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
It's a darker cherry colored wood.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not the walnut. Yeah.
Right. Did they add anything else?
Well, certainly they added USB and MIDI, right?
Well, the first reissue has MIDI, but doesn't have USB. I don't know if this one does either. Does it have USB?
Scrolling the photos here.
I don't think it's got USB. I think it's.
That would be another misstep for me. Is just like it, give it. I mean, seriously,
I think putting USB on it would be a mistake. Honestly, though,
that's what you feel. Yeah.
Yeah, because what happens is, and this is something I've run into since the dawn of the USB connections on synths, like the V Synth and the SH201 and some of these older ones. The companies abandon the drivers, and then eventually, a few years down the line, the OSs are updated, but you can't get your drivers working, and then all of a sudden, half the features that you want, you either have to plug it into an old computer, or you're just not ever going to use it again. So which of the iconic synthesizer manufacturers have done that? Like Roland or Moog, or have any of those done that? Done what?
Abandoned the features.
Yeah, Roland 100% has done it a shit ton of times.
Oh wow.
I have a Clavia Nord Lead or Nord Wave that I think that one still works though, because it's more of a storage. It's not really meant for MIDI. So, but it does have a USB connection on it. I'm trying to think of any of the other ones I have. V-Synth, V-Synth GT, SH201, all abandoned.
Well, I mean that's a great question, but I think Moog being the iconic synthesizer, like already integrated synthesizer, to me, I can't imagine them ever abandoning it unless the company went down. And so to speak to that, I sort of feel like, I don't know, this sort of in a way feels like a gasp.
So, I mean,
like a last ditch gasp of like, the old Bugs Bunny cartoon where the fingers come up through the water and it's 1, 2, and 3. And I kind of feel like maybe this is their gasp, because I know they're struggling, and like every company is.
Well, they had a change of president, and I think it was a marketing guy that became president, if I recall. But here's where I hope things are going. I mean, yeah, I'm upset about the price on it, but if this brings in revenue so that they continue, like, geez, they need more. They need to update the software on the Matriarch. They need to update the software further, in my opinion, on the Moog 1.
Yes.
We need to see more models that are interesting. For them to put out a mini Moog and then to really put a lot of time into their software stuff. We had the Mooger Fogers that just came out, including the new saturation one that just came out, I think, was it today?
Which none of it is new.
Yeah.
None of it. I mean, it's software form, but none of it's new.
Yeah. But at least
you know what I mean.
At least it's something that we can use and put to good effort. I would rather have Moog or Foger software and Mini Moog software than to have more little work stats and minotaurs and things or whatever all those little things are.
Yeah.
And that's not to say you can't make good music with
Those
those.
little things.
So, well, I know what you're talking about, like those little kit, almost like.
I mean, but so
Almost
let's be Moog for a minute. As a company, what do you do to the follow up to the Mini Moog, the Model D? What do you do as a follow up?
I don't think you do one. I think you just keep making it. I think they should not discontinue it.
But that's my point.
Perpetuity. That's
if my internet's getting across at all.
Yeah,
that's my point. It feels like a dying gasp.
Yeah.
And like
this for us again.
Awesome.
Model
There's
E.
your answer.
You win the internet, Wagyu.
Well,
I wish I could see the chat. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just like I pared everything down just to this to hopefully like get some decent streaming. So
yeah.
You know what?
Sorry.
I have an idea. I think I have an answer to this question of like, what do you do next? Well, maybe you would do this.
Oh, you're just the segue king right now.
Is that a tardigrade? What is that?
Oh my God! What a segue king you are.
Trigon.
Yeah, the Trigon.
That's such a cool looking synth. I'll tell you that.
I had a good laugh because as soon as I saw that what was the email or something, or saw something online, I was like, the Mini Moog is back in production. Like as fast as my fingers would fly, I went and tried to find out. I went to Sweetwater and tried to find out how much it would cost me, and I was like, ugh. And then like I don't know, an hour or two later, it's like Sequential just stepped up and was like, bitch,
boom,
please.
Yeah. Check this out, guys and gals.
And they were holding it. They had to have just been holding it for the for the right day.
Well, who knows if they even really wanted to announce it? I think they had to. Mini Moog dropping like that.
Yeah, I mean, you had to. Like, it was the perfect time, but it seems like everything was ready to go for it anyway.
It's the PS3, man. It's the Xbox One versus the PS3.
So many thoughts. I just think it's a ladder filter, right? So like, and it's I think it's 20.
Interesting that they did that too.
Well, right, exactly, and so that is very much in the Moog,
it is
category. So yeah. I mean that part of it.
Probably what we should say, just in case anybody's just listening to us because they don't want to look at our faces. So what we're looking at right now is...
Don't blame them. Cover your eyes. I'm hitting.
Now that they can see Tim in full resolution.
Yeah. Tim's coming
your
through.
eyes.
Unblocky, un-Minecrafty.
This is... We were looking at the Sequential Trigon 6, which was announced the very same day as the Mini Moog reissue.
Yeah.
And it is basically the third in the series of the Sequential Prophet 6, Obi 6. So you had the Sequential sound, the Oberheim sound, and now they've done in 6 voices the Moog sound with a ladder filter. 3 oscillators.
This is cool. I might have to get one of these.
It is really cool. I think it's really cool too. And exactly, yeah, it is. It is their. It does make sense in terms of balancing their offerings. Cryss, to exactly what you just said. So I think it's pretty neat. I don't know that I've seen some banter online about. Well, but it doesn't sound like a Dave Smith instrument.
There's a ladder filter in it.
Well, I mean,
the other
exactly.
This was actually the last synthesizer that Dave worked on, so it literally is a Dave Smith instrument.
I mean, totally, and it balances out the other offerings.
Sure.
That are exactly in that category. Yeah. Does it have built? Oh, it does. It's got effects. It's very much in the realm of that.
You know what I love the most about it, guys? See where those pitch mod wheels are? See where they are?
Oh, God.
On my Prophet 08, it's...
Oh, my God, do we have to relive this nightmare?
I mean, this is how you make a synth right here. Take note. You got your pitch and mod on the left-hand side, and they are wheels, not touch interface. None of this garbage push, blah, blah, blah. There's a pitch mod.
We're back here again. Oh, my God.
Do it, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, my
Hey, listen,
God.
you know what I was thinking about this? Because, they were like, oh, you got to have the touch ones because it's like a micro one or whatever. And I'm thinking, what about the micro Korg? I had wheels on it for pitch and mod. No excuses. All right. Yeah.
All right, done. For now. Until the next show when this comes up again. Yeah.
Yes. No touche, whatever. It's just pitch mod in the right spot. Thank you very much, for making a synth the way it should be.
I mean that's classic, but okay, Chris, go ahead.
So, but here's where I will rant.
Funny.
I understand why they did it because it's the third in the series. No freaking screen.
Yeah, it doesn't need a screen.
I could deal with the shorter keyboard, but like the patch naming and all that kind of stuff, that drives me nuts. I hate that. But everything else on there, I think this is a great package. It sounds great from the audio clips, got great features, obviously very much in the Mini Moog expanded realm.
I mean, I would just say on the screen front, at least it's not like a one of those rack mount D50s. What are they called? D550 or whatever, where it's like painting a hallway through a letterbox, and you got to memorize all the stupid menus in there. Like this.
Well, I mean, what about the Model D right now? Where's that screen? Right. So so there's a
function. Really, it doesn't have presets. The thing is like preset memory now. If you got one set and whatever, you got 9 or 10 patches that you just use all the time.
I get that. I guess I'm just saying, like, there's a point of departure where you decide this will be the design form and function of what you do. Yeah. And this is very consistent with, the Prophet 6 and the LB6, incredibly successful for them, right? So, like,
incredibly successful. But
you want the screen, and you can also get editors, right? Can't you plug that?
That's what I have to use for it. But look what has a freaking screen. It has patch names on there. It has patch names.
Wait, bring that full.
Yeah.
Hold on. Bring your video full set. Let me do it.
Well, what's
hold on.
What's the difference between?
Put that back up there, Chris. Put that back up there. Okay, where the hell is the pitch mod wheel? Missing. Fail. F minus.
Oh my God, we're all like in our own ways. I think the three of us are very much like, get off my lawn, That's hilarious. That's why it's a good show, though,
But shouldn't that make you even more mad that a little synthesizer that doesn't even have pitch and mod wheels gets a screen with named patches on it?
I mean, it's interesting how these companies make design choices like that. But
they're just trying to make it appeal to the people that can afford it. You know what I mean? Like, so a 14-year-old can probably buy that synth, right, Chris? But they're not going to be able to afford a Model D, right? Yeah. There's no way. And so, so exactly appeal to your audience, I guess. That's everything I see about it. Same thing with the OBX8. It's really like, what? Why is this £1 million and has, a half square mile of real estate with all these large buttons or whatever? They're doing that thing, right? Because that appeals to the audience that can afford it at $5,000.
As I look at mine, and I'm like, there is kind of a lot of space on there. But it's not like a virus. Have you seen a virus? Everything's crammed up in the upper left-hand corner.
I like this. We should just make this the rant channel from now on. Chris, you can just rant about guitars and synths and everything else you can do. And I should start ranting about drum companies and why do we have to have all the old drum companies be so important anymore. Like all the vintage ones, Slingerland and Ludwig, and like why is that so important now? Oh, but it's very important to the purchasers. So the manufacturers, they have to in the end sell their wares, right? So. Anyway, this is funny. I think we could totally go off on this as another subject.
I just appreciate that we've got 2 synths back to back that have been announced here that are legit, like
yeah,
like really nice synths. I appreciate
no complaints whatsoever about the tone of either one of these.
Yeah, or the construction, most likely.
Yeah. I
guess we don't know about the Grogan since it's a new thing, but at least
it's following the pattern of the other two down to the damn screen. But we know it's going to have a great key bed. It's going to have a FITAR key bed and the mod wheels and the playability, the programmability of it. You can see everything that it does basically on its front face, and they've given you actually a lot more controls than even the OB6 or Prophet 6. So.
Yeah, on the front panel there, yeah, for sure. Well, and it should. It's the OBX8 is a vintage, modern take on a vintage unit, in a way. This is a whole new thing, which it should be.
Except for it's in the series of the OB6, which is just a modern take on an old thing, and also the Prophet 6, which is a modern take on an old thing, right? Yeah. So maybe this in that canon though is like. Yeah, maybe they made a slightly different thing. They have effects on board. Some people are like really dead set about onboard effects. You don't have to use them.
Yeah, I know.
But if they're not there, I mean, you can't use them. Like, I think it's kind of neat. Like it's there, and it's again in a preset, right?
Well, this is a great working man synthesizer because it's got everything on board. You don't have to take anything else. I mean, you've got your effects, you've got your arpeggiator, your sequencer. It gives you all this extra stuff, plus even things that you wouldn't find on a mini Moog. So you get the poly mod, the sequential poly mod for this. So now you're taking that kind of sequentially thing and adding it to the Moog sound.
Right, and it's not a mono synth. So
yeah, and it's not $5,000. So.
Yeah,
it is priced right at. I think what the 2016 reissues were priced at $3,500, right? So, do you think that's a coincidence?
I think that's probably about where this should be, and honestly, that's where the Mini Moog D should be, in my opinion, too. But I'm not at Moog, and they're going to charge what they're going to charge.
How much is the so for example, rather the Pro 3? Where is that at? That's a hugely fully featured, fantastic Dave Smith instruments, mono synth. What does that go for? Like, I think if you get so there are 2 versions of it, right? It's got the one that's got the prop up panel and the walnut sides or whatever. So let's go with that. Like the high end version of that, what does that cost?
So the base model would be $2,000.
It's $2,000, and I think it's about $2,500 maybe or something.
Well, the fancier ones
come down.
The fancier one's on sale right now. Yeah. $2,199.
Yeah.
Looky there, partners.
Yeah. Again, I really think Moog just knows what they're doing, and I hope it isn't their dying gasp. I
don't think it is. I think
to price that at $5,000, which is
$5,000.
It's pretty impressive, man. Like, wow. Like, even for the X8, and it's a polysynth. I don't know, man. But they know what they're doing, right? I mean, marketing wise, it is the iconic synthesizer. I do believe.
Well, and like I said, I guarantee you, there's people that missed out on that one are gonna jump all over this one. Because if it is, I don't know if it's a limited run. I don't know if they said it is, but if it is, and people miss out again, oof.
All right, so Marshall, you buying one?
I already got mine. I'm good.
Cryss, you buying one?
For what? Which one?
Model D. Sorry, Model D.
No, I'll have to live vicariously through Brian and let his purchase help fund a matriarch firmware update.
Yes. Yes. And Tim, will you buy one? No, I'm not going to buy a Model D. I think the subsequent 37 is in so many ways a superior synth. It just doesn't have that like, oh, I'm going to draw you in. I'm a Model D. That's maybe there are some differences sonically. I bet they're very, very small.
Yeah.
Well,
so I'm not buying one of those.
We'll have to agree that Brian is clearly the coolest person out of all of us here.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if I had a spare,
Yeah, the funny thing is my rep called me because he knows when big stuff like this comes out, I'm probably going to buy one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you guys sold me one in 2016. You don't remember? And I forgot it was a different guy. It was right around the time they switched my rep to the guy I've had since then. And so he didn't sell to me. It was the other guy.
Well,
he didn't know. So I was like, oh, no, sorry, man. I already got one.
Yeah. They're turning synths over just as fast as they're turning salesmen over. It's like, okay. All right, sure. You don't remember that, but I do.
I was like, you don't remember that? And then he's like, oh, that was your old guy. I was like, I forgot. That was such a long time.
So what about the Trigon guys? Is that something that?
I want to see a little bit more on that. The thing is that I have a couple of synths that I've had my eye on for a while. I'm still trying to get a Voyager. I would still really like the new I would still like the new Nord Wave, the Wave 2. And what was the other one? A Kurzweil K2500X. I really want one of those. So I don't know that I'm going to get the sequential one right away. I might get a used one maybe in a while, but it's definitely on my radar now. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's let Trigons be Trigons.
That's good.
Oh, Brian, that's funny. Dude, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would absolutely be interested at some. If I needed to fill in a blank right now, which I don't, that would be. I might jump for that. Certainly over the Take 5.
Oh yeah.
100%. Which is a great synth too, I think. Really, for the money, I think it's pretty incredible. But yeah, I would definitely go with that. With the Trigon, seems fantastic, and the little bit I've heard of it sounds great. Jamie from Geosynths did some patch design on it on one of his live streams. Anyway, it sounds great. It looks great. It's in the canon of the other two synths that we just mentioned previously, and so I would think, like that's cool. I just don't, personally need any more hardware synths. I think I'm going to now circle back around and do the software thing and I really want to get Pigments. Yeah. Like I don't even know what that's about yet.
That's cool. Yeah, it's nice with the newer software synths, and not just all of them, but there's some that are better than the others. And those companies that are doing really well have given us an opportunity to not have to put out that money. I mean, it's so nice that, with my Softtube stuff or even Rolling Cloud, and definitely the newer Arturia stuff like 2016 on, they've been killing it. There's so many great things that it's like when I think about putting something in the studio, it's like that's a lot of money to output. It's space that it takes up. Do I really need this? Because I really like the sequential. Of course, I really like the mini Moog as well. But when I think about the money output for it, it's like, I'm really good with what I have right now. And then when it comes to, it's even easier when it comes to things that are a little more esoteric, or things that I'm not sure if I would really get along with that well. To be able to have some of those synthesizers in the box, I've got my buddy's Prophet 10 here, which is fantastic, but it's not something I would ever buy. So it's nice having Yuhi and Arturia's different versions of different Prophet revision 2 and 3 in the box that both sound great. And so it's like I don't need to have the Prophet sound in my studio, when I want those sounds, I can go to a plugin and get them, and then the stuff that's really dear to me, like Moog, I'll have some hardware that does that. And
right.
Then, and one of the other things too is like, so with feature-wise with some of this stuff, so one of my favorite soft synths right now, which I was never interested in the hardware version at all, is the Arturia's Korg MS-20. And I just they never did it for me. Anytime I played one, anytime I heard people playing, I'm like, that's kind of nasty sounding. But I got it in the collection. I started using it. I was like, man, I'm actually able to get some really good sounds out of that. I would have never gotten to that point because I never would have spent the money on a hunk of plastic that, doesn't, may or may not work for me. So to be able to have that in the box, and then with their version, of course, you can do polyphony too. So I can tell you, like, there's some really fat sounds doing an MS-20 with like, 3 or 4 voices. I mean, you can go up more than that, but the sounds are so fat, like, by the time you get to 3 voices, like, you don't really need anymore. It's so big sounding. So it's nice. Like, I don't really have to get something in the studio that does that.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, the MS-10, the poor little MS-10, that is a really fun, basic hardware synth. I just happen to have one, but I never really knew about it. But it does some really fun things. Like, it's really cool. Like, it can do some things the Model D won't,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, it's one oscillator. And also, like, that's sort of the charm. Like, you have to, like, figure it out. So I think they did put some other options on there so that you could do more sound design than maybe, having 3 oscillators or whatever. But, like, it's really fun. I love that synth. My brother-in-law gave it to me years ago, and it was, well, that and my actual brother gave me this Moog Source, which is sitting here at the moment. But
you have a Source,
dude.
You got Moog
It sounds
Source,
amazing
bro.
too.
Oh my God. I'm so jelly of you right now.
Dude,
coming to your house.
That's what I got.
Look at that. That's such a cool looking synth too. Like,
Marshall,
it's so 80s, right? Like, it's so,
I love it.
I know.
If you go back and watch some of his videos from a couple years ago, it's all over those.
Yeah,
you never want to sell that thing. You know where to find me.
Well, it's from my brother, so I'm not selling it. It's serial number 1720. So it's not like one of the earlier ones, but it's 1720. That's what it is.
Nice.
But yeah, dude, this thing. But performatively, it's a little difficult because you have to select the param. Wait, am I playing an accordion now? You have to select the parameter here, and then you have this, like, full-on mod wheel, alpha wheel, right? So it's kind of weird. Like, you can't just. There's
no MIDI on that either, right?
No, and it's exactly the moment where everybody thought, oh, it's cool to get rid of all the knobs,
Yeah.
And that's what makes it neat, right? Like, that's what makes it cool.
It's a cool oddity, and it's got pitch mod wheel, so
it looks like it should go above a JX8P or something.
It's like a cool look. It's like looks like it's a DeLorean, like Back to the Future. That's like stainless steel.
It is absolutely that, but it still has the walnut edges, and it's like, and I think this was, it was definitely during the period I think that Moog didn't have his trademark. But dude, like, this thing sounds crazy. The keyboard action is not fun. It's really hard to play. It's very, I don't know, clicky clacky. It's very fast. Yeah. That's
like how the Profit 8 is. It's got a really not good keyboard, at least the one I have. I don't know if something's wrong with it, but it sounds like garbage. The key bed.
Yeah. Anyway,
thanks for showing us your source, Tim.
Well, I mean, I love that instrument, and I should use it more often.
You should. That thing's cool.
It is cool. It's cool. It just doesn't have MIDI, and you have to, like, the trig and the oh shit. Anyway, the way that you have to address it if I'm using Eurorack, which is what I'm doing now a lot, it's just a little weird. I have to kind of do a little couple of 2 steps to make it work, but it's not bad. It's not bad.
It's definitely got a great tone to it.
Woo, Lord.
All right, guys, we're at past 2 hours at the moment. If it's cool with you guys, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, longest ever, right?
Longest show ever. Thanks for listening to us, guys. Appreciate it, guys and girls. We had a nice, lively chat room tonight. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah.
I guess we could do real quick. What's happening? So, Chris, what's happening?
Yeah. Well, family and Black Friday, I think. So I don't know. I haven't really bought too much yet, so I'm trying not to buy too much. So maybe a little more looking around and seeing if there really is something that I need. That's a hard one. It's like there's always things that you want, but I'm trying to be good. Obviously I don't have an OBX8 in my studio, so I'm practicing all that discipline.
The native VS asking for an update on that 2600 you got.
Yeah, no update for a while. Listen, I've got it. There's some other things ahead of it that have to be taken care of. So where I last left it is I had done the power supply and I had rebuilt the preamp module on it, and so I've got the capacitors are in and pulling out the sliders and putting new sliders in, but saving the old sliders in case I want to like really monkey around with them at some point. And I think maybe what I'm going to do with it also would be to replace all the jacks on there. I mean, definitely the 1/4 inch needs to be replaced, but they're not the standard whatever 3.5 millimeter 1/8 inch whatever. There's something a little bit off. Actually, I was talking with with Mark Doty, and he was telling me that it's like when you check that, just know that those jacks aren't the same size as what you think you're gonna hook your Euro rack up to it. They're not quite the same. They'll be very loose. So I'm thinking about actually doing them with the standardized jacks again, keeping everything, and then being able to use it with everything else that I have. Because I mean, it would be so cool to have the rich tone of the 2600, but being interfacing with some modern modules and stuff. And Nate Robert says that they're teeny jacks, tiny. I don't know. They're a little bit different, but it would be cool to integrate with other things. And at some point, like I don't know if I mentioned it to you guys. I don't know if I mentioned it to the chat, but my buddy who bought it originally had done some songs, so he sent me some music of it. And there's a couple tracks that are really damn cool. Like one sounds a lot like it was done before Welcome to the Machine came out, and the kind of like back and forth, like the VCS3 or whatever was used on that, like the cool kind of machine stereo sounds. He's doing something like that on the 2600, and it has this cool like harmonized leads and stuff. It's this dark, really cool sounding synth track with acoustic guitar and drums, and so it's really really fun to hear. I've heard other little things where he'd used it in backing stuff, but nothing where it was like the main feature. And so when he gave me that track, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible! I cannot wait. But I do gotta wait, but yeah, when that gets done, I'll be doing videos and we'll be showing it on the show and all having fun with that. So that's it for me.
Tim, what's happening?
Nothing.
Nothing. Eat no yams or nothing.
Nothing. No, dude. Like, yeah, what a great time to be alive. Anyway, happy Thanksgiving to everybody too. But yeah, I'm going to do this live show and really trying to get. You can see behind me to my that would be to my right, I guess, on the screen. That rig back there, which has Machine Plus and then Eurorack and then KeyStep Pro. Dude, this has been a real challenge for me, and I'm excited and at the same time frustrated because I can't spend a day or with nothing happening about music creation. but I've spent many days actually just trying to figure out why. So anyone that's ever, delved into this world where you're using some sort of controller and then Eurorack and then some other, machine is trying to be the brain. It's quite interesting. This could be, I mean, I could literally do an entire topic on this for one of our shows about integrating things and what I'm learning about this and what I really don't want to learn. Like, I really just want it to work, right?
Yeah. No, that's actually a great idea to cover some of that at some point.
Yeah.
I run into similar obstacles with my setup, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, totally. Wow, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that would be very interesting to hear. And what you're trying to do and what I'm trying to do are things that aren't pretty much, they're not typical things, right? So
yep.
I think it'll be interesting if we can make them work, which I know you will, and I will conquer as well and try to make some music, and I will, but yeah. So that's December 17 is my show. So that's my deadline. Getting close. Whatever. The rest of it's just, I don't know, it's the holidays for everything that's great for and everything that it's interesting for, as we can all relate.
Yes.
But that's pretty much it. Like, I literally put everything else on hold so I can figure out how to make this system work and find its problems and find the workarounds. So, yeah.
Yep. Problem solving.
Yeah, not much music making just yet. Although today I did actually get like some, I don't know, maybe whatever. Anyway, the way I'm trying to go about it with Machine is with scenes. So it's like clip launching, essentially.
Right.
There's nothing new about that, but just to like make this system work and be okay, I've gone through so many permutations. It's insane. Like, especially even if you plug one module into the wrong receptacle, then everything down from it went dark.
Yeah.
I mean, this kind of thing and then you go, all right. Anyway, sorry, that was a long answer, but that's what's up, and yeah, it's all good, and I'm excited about life. Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. Get some.
Oh, do we just lose Marshall's audio?
Right. Yeah, I don't. I don't necessarily think that it was me tonight. But you're back.
I keep hitting the button. I'm sorry. Sorry, I made a mistake. I'm gonna watch Die Hard. No, that's not till Christmas. Sorry.
So yeah, what are you doing?
I'm gonna work on this movie trailer soundtrack thing.
Yeah.
I need to get that done, and yeah, I'm gonna try and get my live rig worked on a little bit this weekend. Look at that. That's the glow of it in there. You can see that's the Nord wave up there. If you can make that out. Anyway, lights are off, but
yeah,
that's still going on. I'm still working on that. I think I said at the beginning of the show, removed the 2600 from the live rig temporarily. So yeah, I had to relearn how to use my Korg radius, which is fun because you forget how to do stuff like splits, and you're like, why is there a split on this? How do I take the split off this patch that I want this bass part for, Mm-hmm. So I had to figure all that out, which is good. And that thing's got a really good vocoder in it too, so maybe I'll implement that a little bit in the live set. We'll see. That's what I got happening. I'm going to have a happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully everyone else here also has a happy Thanksgiving in the U.S. here that celebrates that. And to all our folks across the pond, I guess carry on.
And cheers.
Cheers.
And thanks for watching, for sure.
Thanks for watching. All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
See you next week.